So I'm going to take us through the flooring by area or dimensions calculator. What I'll start by doing is a review of how it works, and then I'll talk about all of the details so you can customize this and change the pricing on your own. So what we can see here is a customer can enter in either area, which would be like some area. This is set up for meters squared, but it could be in any unit that you'd like. And then they could also do it by dimension. And in both cases, it's going to calculate the total number of boxes that are required. Now, let's go ahead and just put, say, 22 here. And you can see that we need 5 boxes in order for us to cover 22 meters squared worth of area. Now, the way it's working behind the scenes is it's pulling a box size from your product that this is on. So this product that this calculator is on has a box size, and that box size is how the calculator determines how many boxes will be required. So to cover 22 meters squared, when each box covers 4.5 meters squared, we would need 5 boxes. Now, it's going to round, so if I were to need like 5.1 boxes, it's going to automatically round it to 6 because you can't use a partial box. So that's something that's built into it to make sure that people have enough boxes to cover the area that they need. Now, it does display a few other things like the total number of coverage that the number of boxes that you're going to purchase will actually cover. So as you can see here, I want to cover 22 meters squared, and with 5 boxes, I'll actually cover a total of 22.50 meters squared. So that means there's a half a meter squared worth of extra sort of waste material that I would be able to have if I got 5 boxes. Now, if I want to jump this up a little bit and I say, hey, actually I want a little more, I know I only need 22. So if I put 25 in here, that gives me 6 boxes. And now I have more waste material. Now, this is also calculating the price per meter squared. So it's showing you how much this costs on a per meter squared basis. And then finally, a total price. Now, the price per meter squared is calculated basically based on the area that a box has and the actual price per box. Now, this happens all behind the scenes. You don't need to know too much about it. Now, let's take a look at dimensions. So here, what a user can do is enter in dimensions of a room. So, for example, maybe my room is 10 by 12. So we can see the total area of that room. And we can see to cover that, we would need 27 boxes. And 27 boxes would cover 121.5 meters squared, etc. So you get it. The total price for those 27 boxes is $273. Now, that's the basics of how this calculator works. Now let's go ahead and dive into how it's configured. So the first thing I want to do is show you the setup for a product. So it's important because this particular calculator uses some metadata fields that are associated with the product. It's important that you understand how those are set up and how to configure it. So here I am, I'm on that product that I was just looking at, and the metadata can be added to any product. Now, if I scroll down to the very bottom of the page, you'll see here that this product has some metadata. It has area per box, and sure enough, it's 4.5. So that means in this case that each box of material of this product covers 4.5 meters squared of area. Now, every one of your products might require or have a different amount of material in each box. So you're going to want to have a metadata on your products and then put the appropriate coverage that a particular box of material or of product will actually cover. So this would be different for each of your products. Now, these metadata fields are not here by default. These are things that you need to add to your product. Now, this is not a video to teach you how to use Shopify. But I will give you a very quick overview. You really should consult the Shopify support docs if you need to know how to add metadata. There will be a section here that you can click on to get to metadata if you don't have any already. But once you have some metadata added to a product, you can click Show All, and this will take you to the metadata for this product. And notice there is some fields that I'm not using here, and that's because metadata in Shopify is added, well, it could be added in lots of different ways, but if you've added it to a product, it will show up on all products. It doesn't mean you use every metadata field for each of your products. So this one is only using the area per box. Now over here I have a view definition settings, And I also have this learn more about metadata. So if I click here, this of course is going to take me to the Shopify help docs, which as I said, is where you should really be going if you need help with metadata. And the view definitions, this is actually going to take me to the backend settings of my store where all of the metadata is actually configured. Notice here, custom data in here. These are where we've configured our metadata. So you need to actually create a definition. And then once you've created it and you've tied it to a product, then it will appear on your product and you can add that data there. So if you want to know how to get there, just not necessarily from a product, it's under settings. And you just saw me, I was under, where was I? Custom data. So that's how you can come in here to create your own metadata. Now, we've already, of course, associated the area per box to this particular product right there. Now, another thing that this calculator is going to use is the default variant price. So what we're going to be doing is using a variable in the calculator, which is called product price. And that product price variable will pull the currently selected variant price. And when you're using the calculator, you shouldn't necessarily be allowing people to change the default options, although you could. The bottom line is whatever the price of that variant is, will come back into the calculator. So in this case, the default variant price is $12.99. So that means each box of this particular product will be worth $12.99. That's important because the product price variable pulls that value. Now, if you are using Shopify default variants, then you may have multiple prices and whatever variant is selected will be pulled into the calculator as the current product price. That's important to understand. Now, one other thing is you can see that I have a template associated here. This is not the default template. I have my own custom template. And there's a reason for this because I have lots of different products in my store that are using all sorts of different configurations, and they are using different types of metadata, for example. And this particular template that I have has some components that are hidden. And so I've created a custom template specifically for this type of product. You may want to do that as well. And I'll just show you where that's configured and quickly how you would do that. So what's important to know is this is tied to the no quantity flooring tabs template, product template. So here I am, I've just come into the product configurator for my theme. And I have gone up here and gone to products. And then I've selected this no quantity flooring tabs, which is the product template I'm using on that product. Now, this is important because I have a bit of a customization here. Notice I've done some things like hiding the quantity or the variant picker, hiding the quantity selector, etc. So I've done a bunch of things here and it's custom for it. But what really matters to you here is this. The option price calculator app block has what are called metadata configuration. So metadata 1 has been configured to use the area per box metadata field from the product record. Coming back here, area per box. What that means is the calculator inside of the variable called metadata 1 will hold the value for area per box. This is going to be very important in the next steps when I show you the configuration, and you will see that metadata 01 is used as a variable in the calculations, and it will hold the value for area per box metadata field, which will be different for every single one of your products. So in this case, it'll hold 4.5. Okay. Now, as like I said, 4.5. Now let's go to our calculator. So here I am, I'm under calculators. I've already installed the template. It's right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it. As you can see here, there's our calculator and the configuration. Now, if you see a few glitches like this, particularly in this calculator, don't mind these missing lines. This is just the display of this preview. It should look quite well like this on your actual product page. Okay. Now, let's go through the basic configuration of this. What I'm going to do is start with the product price, and then we'll go through each of the options. So here's our basic configuration for our calculator. So this is how we're calculating the price. Now, because we're selling per box, all we actually have to do here to set the actual price that the calculator will be is we just need the per box price. The per box price is just the product price. The product price, this is a built-in variable that pulls the selected variant price. As I mentioned, that's going to pull the price from the default option, which is this one, right? That's it. Now, the reason why that's all is because we will multiply it by the quantity of boxes that is getting added to cart, which means that calculates the total price based on the quantity. So we always have to pass the per unit price to Shopify. It doesn't do total price. We see lots of people thinking that that's how Shopify works. It's not how pretty much any e-commerce platform works. You purchase by the box or by the unit, and then it gets multiplied by the unit price. So that's how Shopify works as well. That's why we're not putting a total price here. This is a per unit price, the box price. Now, we also have a discount. So this particular calculator will apply a discount based on the quantity of product that's being purchased. So this formula here is actually calculating the amount of discount that should be applied to the price. Now, it looks like a confusing formula, and that's because it's actually using a percentage to calculate how much to get deducted. Now, this is probably going to be better to come back to explain the formula once you see how some of the other parts work. But I'll just quickly try to explain it, and then we'll look at it in more detail after. So what this is doing is, because this is actually a percentage, this part is a percentage. What it's doing, or I should say this part is a percentage, is it's right here, it returns a percent discount based on the quantity of product that you're purchasing. That percent discount is multiplied by the product price. So for example, if you get a 30% discount for ordering 10 boxes, what this would do is return 0.30, which is 30%. And when you multiply that by the total price, you get the total discount. So if the box was $100 and you had a 30% discount, what that would do is it would give you a price of $30. That's the discount that we're going to apply. Now, we want to calculate a total amount, not a percentage, to deduct as the discount. So what we then do is take the total price and we subtract the total discount, which is $30, giving us the discount price. Now, I actually said that backwards. This is going to return 70 in the case of 30%, and then it'll multiply it, which will give you the price, and then you'll minus this and you'll get 30 as the final value. So I said that a bit backwards. It'll make more sense when we look at the actual box discount pricing table, and then you can see how it returns a value. So we'll look at that in just a little bit. But the bottom line is, this is going to return a value, and this is just how you calculate the total amount to deduct per unit of the product that's ordered. And that, of course, is based on the quantity purchased. And that's what this does. This is a lookup table formula that will take a quantity and then find a discount to apply based on the quantity of products that are being ordered. Okay, let's go through some of the options up here. So calculate by. Now, one thing to notice is this actually has a whole bunch of options that are hidden, and you won't see them here. And the way that they're hidden is actually using what are called rules. So down here we have rules, and there's two rules. The first is when calculate by is one of area, then hide dimensions and show area square meters. So what that's doing is when this button up here is set to area, it's going to hide the dimensions option, and it's going to show the area option. It's also going to hide this total area option here, which we only want to appear when you're on the dimensions tab. So that's what that rule is doing. There is one more rule, which is actually that other part I just told you, hiding the total area when you're on the dimensions tab. All right. So the first rule is hiding and showing the area and the dimensions, and then the second rule is just hiding and showing the total area. We only want this to appear on the dimensions tab. When you're in the dimensions tab, you want to show the dimensions and hide the area. When you're in the areas tab, you want to hide both of those other options. So that's what the rules does. It hides and shows options depending on other options. Now, continuing on, let's take a look at each of these options. Now, like I say, this isn't going to be entirely linear because some of these are hidden. So the first is calculate by. The calculate by field is going to be this area and dimensions one you see up here. So let's go ahead and edit this. And what you can see here is there's two options, area and dimensions. The option that's selected by default is the area. We're using a formula to calculate the value to assign to this option when it's selected. So when area is selected, we're going to assign the value from the option area square meters. This is a unique name that identifies another option within the calculator. So notice up here it says calculate by. This is a unique name of this option that I'm in, the calculates by option. It's called calculates by. Now, that's what this is a reference to a different option. So in this case, area is actually this input value right here. So it's area square meters, it's this one. So what happens is when someone enters in a value here, say 50, this value of 50 gets assigned to the area option up here. So that means the area option will have the value of 50. This will be important later because you'll see that in our final calculation, we're going to use things like our area to calculate how many boxes we need and then how much discount to apply. Dimensions is going to work in a very similar way. We also want to assign the total area to this option when dimensions is selected, but in the case of dimensions, it's not a single value, it's actually two inputs. The user is going to enter in length and width. The length times the width is the area. Simple algebra. That's what this formula is doing. Flooring dimensions is another option referenced by the unique name. Let's look at that. Flooring dimensions right here. This particular option is what's called a measurement option. A measurement option will accept two dimensions. That's what it is right here, two dimensions. In this case, height and width, all right? Now, the option itself is referenced by the unique name, which is flooring dimensions. But because it has two values, you get the value of each of these inputs by adding dot input 1 and dot input 2 to each of the, or to the formula. So if I come back to my calculates by, you will see that we have dot input 1 and dot input 2. So what that's doing is getting the value from the first input, length, and the value from the second input, which is this one, width. And of course, multiplying those together gives you an area. So what that means is the calculates by option will always hold the area of product that's being ordered. That's very important later because we want to be able to get the area from a single place, and now we can find the area required from the calculates by option. Okay. Now I have been saying length and width, and it's actually height and width. Don't worry, this is just a label. Either way, the input 1 and input 2 is the same. Let's go ahead to this instructions one. This instruction option is not really a calculation. Instead, what it is it's just a way to display some information. That's what this is right here. Enter area or dimensions of the room you want to cover. The correct number of boxes will automatically be selected for you. If I go into this, you will see, sure enough, that's what this is. So this is just an option that contains some data that we're going to display on the page to help instruct our users what they need to do. Area square meter. That, of course, is the area right here. And by the way, if you see that sometimes this switches when you're on area tab, it's showing this. That's just a bug within the preview. You won't see that on your product page. It's just how we update this. So anyway, area is our area here. And this is what a user is going to enter. So let's take a look at how this works. So what this is it says it's using a formula, and the formula is area square meter dot input value. Now look, this option is called area square meter. That's the unique name for this option. Dot input value is a special value you can add to the end of specific types of options. In this case, any number option. This is a number option. And that will make it so that the number entered by a user will be the value that this option actually holds. Why this is important, for example, if I get rid of this and I were to go to say value, just set a random value here. What that would mean here is whenever somebody adds a value to this option, so they're going to enter in some number for it, it would always have the value of 22. So the way all of the options work in the calculator is you can assign a value to it when somebody enters in a value. A number option doesn't necessarily mean that the value is what the user enters in. People often make this mistake to think that when a user enters in a number that it somehow takes on that value. It does not. Instead, it takes on whatever value you assign here. Either a fixed value like this, 22, or the value that comes from a formula. And the formula we're choosing to use is one that will actually assign the user's input value to the value of this option. So what that means is area square meters will get the user's input value when somebody enters in a number. What that means is when somebody types in a value here, for example, 55, the area square meters option will now hold the value of 55. That's important because, as I said up here in the calculate by, we are taking in the area square meters. The area square meters value will be 55. Another way this could have been done is you could have put area square meters dot input value, because this would also pull the input value that a user assigns into this. It just happens to not be how it's done. Okay, a couple more things to talk about on the area input. Currently, there is no minimum or maximum, but if you want to have a minimum amount of area that somebody could set in order to use this, you could put that in, and same with maximum. It's up to you. You could also define decimals, so maybe you only want someone to enter in values with 1 decimal place or none. You can define that here. This will limit the actual input, so users can only put the number of decimals that you put here. And then if you want to assign an initial value to this, you could put this here, and that would mean this option has this value to start with. That's really good if you want to have kind of a base price to begin with. Now let's look at the flooring dimensions. The flooring dimensions, as I mentioned, is a measurement option. A measurement option takes 2 inputs, input 1 and input 2. This is a little bit more complicated in terms of how options work. So let's go into it. So a measurement option does a number of things. One, it has 2 inputs. I've talked about this already. I said input 1 and input 2. Notice it says height and width. These are just display names. The fact that it's height and width doesn't matter. This could be length. It could be anything you want. It does not matter. It's just to be displayed to the user. So you can change this if you want it to be length instead of height. Now, there's a few other things. The format. So in this case right now, the format is a number. And what that means is a user is going to enter in a number. This is a number. It's really simple, okay? There are other formats you can use. You could change this to a number and a decimal, or sorry, a number and a drop down. So a user could enter a number here, and then it would have a drop down that you could select from. And there's a whole bunch of other formats. I'm not going to go into those all right now, but there are lots of formats that you can do. What's important for you to know is these are configured, and you reference each of these, as I mentioned, by flooring dimensions.input1 and flooring dimensions.input2. That gives you input 1 and input 2. A measurement option also has the ability to look up a price from the user inputs for you automatically. That is happening here. That's what a pricing table is. A pricing table is where you can define values that you want this option to output when a user inputs specific values. So if there's a value for input 1 or height and a value for width, we could output a specific number. Now, in the case of this calculator, you'll see that we don't really actually do that, but a pricing table is still required for any type of measurement option. So I'll take a look at this right now with you, and I just want to show you that this type of, or the way this is being done is it's just really outputting a value. It's not actually giving us anything of any pertinence. So the option itself is always going to output 1. So what that means is if you were to reference this field as flooring dimensions instead of flooring dimensions.input1 or flooring dimensions.input2, the value that this would hold would always be 1, because what this does is it takes the value from input 1, that looks along the top, and if it's between 1 and 1000, it's going to either return column B or column C. Then it's going to look down input 2, and if it's between 1 and 1000, it's going to choose a row here. So if it's anywhere up to 1000, it would choose this first row. Same thing for here, and it would choose this value. Okay, so that's going to always output 1. Now, there's lots of things you can learn about option tables or pricing tables. I recommend you read the docs. And the other thing is, what this is doing is equivalent to this, return a fixed value. So you could read this description if you're still confused somehow. But that's what this does. You don't need to know too much. You don't need to change anything here. It's just outputting a fixed value. And that's just because we have to assign a pricing table to this measurement option. And we're only using the input values for the rest of our calculations. Okay, that's the flooring dimensions. And as I mentioned, flooring dimensions value is coming into here as flooring dimensions.input1 times flooring dimensions.input2. All right, total area. This is another instruction option. In fact, there's a whole bunch of instruction options here. There's about 6 of them. All these are doing is displaying values on the page for users to see. So they're all doing the same thing, just calculating different values. So the total floor area, that's actually this one right here. Then there's a line break. That's this line you see. It's actually this empty space, not the line, it's the empty space. You need, there's you need. Box size, covers. It's pretty straightforward. Price. Okay, HR, this is just a line break that I think you see right here. That's this line. Total price, that's the total price. And then the quantity. This value is actually hidden. You don't see it on the page, but it is here. It is getting assigned a value, and this is being used when the product gets added to cart to assign the total number of boxes that are required. So let's go through these options or these instruction options now quickly to show you how they work. So they all work in the same type of way. An instruction option will always display some text or HTML, then it will display a calculated value, and then it will display a postfix or some value that comes after the calculated value. So that's why how they're all working. They're going to be working very similarly. So let's edit the total area first, and that's this one right here. And you'll see that the total area, that's the instruction HTML, that's the part that appears at the beginning. Then we have a calculation. Then we have some details around how that calculation works, 2 decimal places here. And then we have our post formula text. This is the text that appears after our formula is displayed. Now, total area, what is it? It's flooring dimensions.input1 times flooring dimensions.input2. That's it. It's pretty simple. This is the same area that we showed you in that other place, and because we're only showing this when you are entering in dimensions, that's why this works here. We don't have to show the other area because we don't show this field. It gets hidden in other cases. Okay. Line break. This is really simple. It's just used to create a line break. Doesn't do anything. There's not even any content here. So by just putting an empty option, we create a line break on the page. That could be done in lots of different ways, but that's how we chose to do it here. You need. This is calculating the number of boxes that you need. Now, the way this is working is actually just taking the product quantity. Product underscore quantity is a variable, and you can see that if I click quantity here, it inserts the value quantity. So that's just a variable, it's built in, that gets the quantity that's set in the quantity selector of the app or within Shopify, your default quantity selector. It just pulls that quantity that sets there. Now, why that's important is this is going to contain whatever value gets set by the calculator for the quantity value, okay? So that's pretty much all that's needed there. You need box size. This is calculating or it's just showing the total size of a single box. Now remember metadata. Here we go. Coming back over to our calculation here, we set in metadata 1 the area per box. That means that metadata 01, this is the variable for it, and you can find it in this dropdown. It's at the very bottom. All of the metadata fields are listed here at the bottom. Metadata 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this just pulls in the value from the product and puts it here. So this will show the total box size. And in this case, well, I want to point this out right now. So the box size here shows 2, but if you recall, our product has a box size of 4.5. So you might think, what the heck? The preview doesn't actually pull metadata from your products. So if you're wondering why this preview doesn't look the same as what you'd expect, and that's because you need to actually set your metadata for preview purposes in the calculator. So these are the data pieces that we're just using by default. We do pull the product price from the first selected product here, but the metadata does not get pulled from there. So these are just predefined by you. We put these values in automatically, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. But if you want to change them, you can. Up here, you can change these values to whatever you'd like. So in the case of our product is 4.5 is our metadata 01. And by changing that, it of course will change the way the calculator is calculating. So that's how metadata works. Now that metadata field will be used in a few other places, so it's very important that it's set correctly. And let's go ahead. I think that covers area price per meter. Now let's look at this one. So this is a little bit more of a complicated formula. What is it doing? Well, this is, first off, this is a function. It's a round function. The way this function works by itself is as follows. This is going to round whatever value is right here where these x's are. It's going to round it to 2 decimal places. So it's rounding this formula right here to 2 decimal places. What's this formula right here? Well, this is called the price per meter squared. That's the name of the option set, or the option. So let's figure out what it's calculating. It's going the product price, which is getting pulled from the product. Remember right here, $12.99. And it's multiplying it by the discount, which is calculated via a lookup formula, which I'll talk about in a second. And then it's dividing it by the area of the box. So the area that's contained within a single box. So that calculates the price per meter squared. So it's how much you're paying per meter squared divided by the total area per box. So I should say the price you're paying per box divided by the area per box. That's the price you pay per meter squared. Now, let's talk about box or a lookup formula. So let's first actually pull up the box discount pricing table. So what this is this is a reference to a pricing table called box discount pt. All pricing tables are going to end in the p_pt. And so if you look in our variables here, you will see, and there's a lot of stuff in this one, but let's just do, I guess. So here's our lookup tables, also known as pricing tables. And so these are all of the different pricing tables we have. So you can reference any of your pricing tables. And this is actually a way to do a pricing table lookup without a measurement option. So remember, our measurement option had 2 inputs. Well, we don't need those inputs. Instead, we can actually just do a pricing table lookup directly. So that's what this is doing. So it's going to our pricing table for box discount, and it's taking input 1 and input 2. These 2 things will be used to look up a price from the pricing table. Now, what we're doing in this formula is we're setting the value of 1 because it's a discount value that's actually one-dimensional. So all we're taking is the quantity that a user needs, and then we're looking up a discount. We don't really need 2 dimensions. So we're using this pricing table to do a one-dimensional lookup entirely based on the product quantity. So I opened this new tab because I wanted to show you what the table looked like, and this will make a lot more sense. So here's my pricing table. And one dimension. Remember I said it's only looking down one way. So we have to have a dimension here for the pricing table to work. So that's why all we have is 1. Over here is just 1. The first the first row will always return 1. And then we're going to look down for our second value, which is the value contained in the second parameter after this comma. And in this case, it's the product quantity. So depending on the quantity that you're about to purchase, you are going to get a discount. Now, I talked about this before. For example, if I buy 15 boxes it's 0.085. Now what that means is not that I'm going to get an 85% discount. It means that I'm going to get a 15% discount. So the way this is working is kind of the inverse. Instead of outputting the discount amount, it's outputting the price you're going to pay, and then it's going to multiply that in a few different ways. So I'll show you that in a second. But the point is, this is giving you 85% of the price. And the way we've calculated is by doing like 1 minus 85% gives you the discount. You probably could change this. In fact, it probably would have been easier to do it the other way, for this to be a 30% discount and then just calculate it. But that's just how this is configured. So just be aware of that. You can go ahead and change these. So this might not be discount that works for you. You can change these to be your own discounts. You can change the increments. So maybe you want different discounts at different number of quantities. So you could put these here. You can change these, and you could go way further. 50 might not be enough. You could go up as high as you'd like. And so that's all you have to do. You don't have to have a value for every single one. So notice this skips. So that from anywhere from 1 to 4 boxes is going to always return 1. As soon as you get to 5 boxes, you're going to get a 5% discount. And then coming down here, if you get 24 boxes, you're going to get an 80% discount. If you get 25, you're going to get a, whatever that is, 32% or 22%. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, once again, there's actually a example here, price from quantity. This is, if I just overwrite it as an example, you'll see it does the same type of thing. All right, so we don't want to keep that one, so I'm just going to exit out. All right, so that's how this is returning. This is going to return, in the case we've looked at, it'll return something like 0.80, which would be like 80% of the real price. Because we're going to multiply that by the price times 80% would give us a value of, like, if it was worth $100, it would give us 80. And then, so what we're doing here is we're paying $80 instead of $100 for it. So that's 80% times 100 gives us $80, and then we're going to divide it by the size of the box. In this case, 4.5. That's meters squared. So this would give us the price that you pay per meter squared. So you pay $17.77 per meter squared in this case of product. Okay, so that is giving us our price per meter squared. This is just a line break, so another empty one. We've seen one of those already. Easy peasy, total price. This is going to calculate the total price that a user is going to pay. Now, it's important to kind of understand this is just an instruction option. So this only displays the price to the end user. It's not actually the price that gets sent to Shopify. The price that gets sent to Shopify is actually calculated by the calculator configuration. So down here, it's the pricing in this area here. Or sorry, right here and here. That's going to be how it determines your actual price. So it's going to be kind of a combination. You'll see our price up here is kind of pulling those things in. So let's go to our total flooring. So math.round, it's our product price times our discount. We looked at that already. So that's going to return like 80 in the case of 100. So it's 80% of your total times the quantity. So if you buy 10 boxes, it'd be 80 times 10, $800. And then it's going to round it. So that's giving you your total price. And then finally, the quantity boxes. This is the quantity option. What this is actually doing is it's going to have a calculation that pulls in and sets the quantity based on the other inputs. So calculates by is taking the value from this one at the very top. If you remember, this contains the area that the product or that a user has entered. So 50 square meters, 100 square meters, whatever that is. And that area divided by the area per box is going to give you how many boxes you need to actually use. Now, the way that a quantity option works is we know that we automatically are going to round a quantity option up. So this doesn't necessarily, like technically this would not give you a round number. It wouldn't give you like a value of say 10 boxes. It could give you like 10.2. This option is going to automatically round 10.2 up to 11 because you can't have a partial quantity in Shopify. That's impossible. You can only have full or whole unit values for a quantity in Shopify. Not a limitation of the app, a limitation of Shopify. So that's how this is going to return, and it's going to just calculate the quantity that should be set for the quantity option. Okay, those are all of the options. A couple final things to do. Let's look back down here. We talked about this a little bit already. Let's look at it in some more detail. So our product price, as I mentioned, that's the amount that we're charging times the quantity. And then up here is a discount. So this is calculating the discount. And the way the calculator is going to work is it's going to take your price and it's going to subtract the amount that gets calculated here from that price. So this in itself is regular price, but when you have a discount up here, you're going to end up adding to cart a discounted price per unit. That's the important part to understand. Okay? So that's going to how you calculate the final price. Now, this is important because this section is actually hidden. Normally it would appear on the calculator in here, but it's actually hidden, and I'll show you some of the styles and how that works now. So if I come over to the Styles tab, there is a section called Hide Calculation section. I'm going to uncheck this, and now here's the calculation section, and you can see it's the same as total price. So the total price is just an information option displaying a price. So if you were to change the way this is calculated, you have to be sure to change your calculator as well, because it's the calculator that actually gets sent to Shopify, not the total price in the information option. Very important to know that. You could use this section instead of the information section that we use. It's up to you, but this is how it's configured. All right, here we have the custom CSS. There is a bunch of custom CSS that helps style the calculator the way that it looks. These are all them here. Now, one thing I have not mentioned is that all of the options that that are configured here have a custom CSS name. So I'm just going to go to some of these really quickly. And under the advanced settings, you will see that there's a class name. A class name is a CSS selector that's appended to the option. And this allows you to reference this option using CSS and then style it to your heart's content. So those CSS names that are assigned to each of the options are then used here. And so this, for example, adds to the calculate by section some margin left and top. And there's these things all through here, styles for mobile, styles for all sorts of things. Okay, so these are custom styles that make it work. These are the same types of styles that make your website look the way it looks. So this is not obscure. This is just how web pages work. But lots of different styles. You can add your own. You can change your own. They're all contained right here. Finally, custom JavaScript. So this particular option set does not use very much, but there is a little bit of custom JavaScript set here. And that's what this is here. And this is, as you can see, it says trigger focus on one field when then another to trigger initial value calculation. So this is just dealing with when the calculator first loads, because of some of the way the settings are set up, this just makes a focus on one of the fields so that the calculator calculates when it first loads on your page. So you don't really need to know too much about this. This is really good to go. The only time this could be a problem is if you start mucking with the custom CSS names and you were to change those, then this would no longer be able to reference. So this is actually referencing two different options. The dimensions and the area option is getting referenced. Basically, ignore this. You don't need to touch them. So that takes us through the styles configuration for this calculator as well. And actually, that takes us through all of the different components for configuring the flooring by area or dimensions calculator. As you can tell, there's a lot of detail that's gone into this, and hopefully the instructions will help you make any changes that you might deem necessary.